second of the day, any time of the day. But it's going to come off when I go to prison, I think. And I don't think I'm wearing this in prison, so that's what the plan is for that.
Today. At one point, the market fell as if down a well.
It was an historic day with Wall Street shaken to its very foundation. And even the health of the most trusted firms are now being called into question.
We have former secretaries of Treasury who go from government to Wall Street pocketing hundreds of millions of dollars.
In 2008, I became somewhat obsessed with the role that money itself played in the crisis and the role that governments and banks played in money. And why was it that our money was controlled by central banks?
If something new happens, is the government likely to give it a nod or at least ignore it for a while? Or is the government likely to come down and try to crush it because they're afraid of anything new and different?
This is a monetary revolution. Bitcoin is the honest currency.
Talking about money. I'm going to ask everybody what you think money is. Can you give me some answers now?
Money is like paper, and you can like buy stuff with it. So you have to have like 4 quarters for $1. You need money to buy your house, like food, water, oxygen, not oxygen.
Money is basically just an accounting system. It is a way of recording who owns what, who has what, who owes what to whom. That is all money really is. And you needed somebody who could stand as the central issuer, somebody who was the trusted third party, someone who could guarantee that the money was real. And for hundreds of years now, we have had governments issue money. Again, money is just an accounting system. That's what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin is really just an accounting system. It is a way of recording transactions, recording value, and it does it digitally so you and I can send it to each other directly, and everything is recorded in the open ledger.
By monitoring and updating that ledger in a collective consensus-based system, you do away with the need for somebody in the middle having to be the sort of repository of all the information. And that's what gets away from the fees, the inefficiencies, and ultimately the potential for corruption and risk that come with centralizing information in that way.
What it does is it takes that trusted third-party function and it automates it. It puts it into an open ledger that is put online, that is there for anybody to see, so that every Bitcoin is accounted for, so that you know that you're not getting a counterfeit Bitcoin.
It's kind of remarkable that this idea of Bitcoin was launched just a few weeks after Lehman Brothers went bankrupt and the whole system nearly collapsed. And the problems that cropped up in the crisis were very much a part of the writings of Satoshi Nakamoto. And what the crisis showed is that the existing system had some major flaws. It wasn't working, and people were hungry for some sort of alternative.
I discovered Bitcoin's power when I understood for the first time that it was not controlled by a central company or a central person, because I knew that meant it couldn't be shut down. And if it can't get shut down, all it needs is to do something useful, and it will become more and more adopted. And as the value grows, people will find more and more uses for it.
The beauty of Bitcoin is it's easily transferable, it's anonymous, and by 2140 there's going to be 21 million, and that's the cap. There's only X amount of gold, there's only X amount of Bitcoin.
who's participating in the Bitcoin system is controlling how it works.
If you want to look for the genesis of cryptocurrency, it was the cypherpunk movement, growing out of a kind of a love of the internet and its possibilities, the discovery of cryptography and imagining that you could actually give birth to a new world, really, out of the internet. A world that lives outside of the nation state and outside the structures of power and the hierarchies that are associated with that.
These people had talked about the need and the possibility for a digital currency that was anonymous or could be anonymized using cryptography.
The cypherpunks that emerged in the early 90s were hyper concerned about privacy, about personal liberty, and a lot of people had come up with their own systems. Some of them came very close to happening. The one that probably came the closest was DigiCash from David Chaum.
Privacy of payments is actually essential for democracy. The reason is not because you need to be able to make private payments in order to express yourself, but rather that in order to inform yourself, you may need to purchase information, and that's the thing that allows you to have opinions worth expressing.
Although I wouldn't say David Chaum was a cypherpunk, he definitely inspired the cypherpunk movement. It's as if the cypherpunks kind of came upon David Chaum's tools, like the technology of some alien species, and they only took the weapons. They were most interested in the ones that could be used to disempower the government and empower individuals.
The break between him and the cypherpunks came when he realized he would need existing institutions to help him with it. So he started talking to governments, he started talking to banks. He was very close to having this thing happen in the late 90s, and nobody was really prepared for this outside of the cypherpunk movement.
People seemed like had almost sort of given up on the project. Other than a few experiments here and there by Hal Finney, Nick Szabo, the conversation around this really died down. And then all of a sudden it came back to life after the financial crisis, and you had people going back to those experiments in the 1990s and looking at new ways of putting those ideas together. Nick Szabo in 2006 had just finished up a midlife stint at law school, and if you look at Nick's writing around the financial crisis, that it really revived his interest in these ideas that he'd been working on in the 1990s with privacy and contracts and the problems of governments and other trusted third parties. And he brought Bitgold back into the conversation.
So Hal Finney came up with his own system. Adam Back has Hashcash. Wei Dai has B-Money. Szabo has Bitgold.
So what Satoshi did in 2008 was Satoshi took a lot of these ideas and made them work and created an encryption-based protocol, it's not really a currency, utilizing a ledger called the blockchain, allowing for many kinds of transactions to occur. Contracts, all kinds of things can be built into the blockchain. And it does.
If I gave you $25,000 today, what would you do? Pay 2 years off your...
Does this through a system of consensus building where multiple computers all participate in the management of the blockchain ledger, the kind of digital document, if you will, that keeps track of all the payments.
It's something that is instantaneous online, and it can go from one country to the other, and they can have their money.
Well, I never heard of it until Nancy called me and mentioned digital currency, and I'm thinking she must have been in the battle this morning or something. Digital currency, what?
But they say it's for people who don't have bank accounts.
I can't understand if you have one coin that's, let's say it's worth $150, what do? Give the number or something to the grocery store person, and then they subtract it? How do you know? How do you make change? How do you know what you have left or what you've spent?
When you you can have the money supply controlled by a computer. That's all Bitcoin really is.
The key point here is that this is a distributed ledger. There is no central server. All the other ledgers that we have, all banking ledgers, all company ledgers, they all sit and reside inside that company, which means they have one point of attack. They can be hacked. JP Morgan was hacked by cyber thieves not so long ago. Home Depot, Target, we've had all these companies get hacked precisely because there's one central repository of information. The Bitcoin ledger resides on thousands of computers. You can't hack that.
Every single transaction is recorded, and once it is recorded in the blockchain, it is there. It is permanent. It cannot be altered. It cannot be changed so that you can read it. Now, the identities of the people are encrypted. The wallets are encrypted, so you don't know who is spending the money, but you know that every single Bitcoin out there has a history. You know where it's been. You know the different addresses it's gone between.
The most important pieces of the Bitcoin infrastructure are the miners. These are the computers that are tasked with maintaining the ledger, the blockchain, to verify the information, to update it, to make sure that this is trustworthy. So how do we incentivize them to do so? As they are going through the process of confirming transactions, they are simultaneously being subjected to a very, very difficult computing test, the Bitcoin